A couple of the games from Week 7. I think the biggest game is the primetime Sunday night game, the Miami Dolphins versus the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are 2.5 point favorites right now, and I'm just going to jump right into this one. Uh, as hot as I am on the Dolphins, we talked about it earlier in this podcast. You got to look at the schedule and who they've played, and the answer to that is the Dolphins have not played anyone good except the Bills, and they got absolutely dominated by the Bills. Let me just read you off who the Dolphins have beat. Barely beat the
Hmm.
Chargers, not a good team in my opinion. Patriots a bad team, Broncos an awful team, the Giants a bad team, and the Panthers maybe the worst team. Um, and so this is who basically that Miami has been clowning on the entire season, and I like Miami because I love their offense, but their defense isn't particularly good, and they're going to be going against an Eagles offense that has a lot of weapons, good scheme, I think, and probably will be looking to bounce back after this loss to the Jets. I know the Eagles haven't looked fantastic really all season, and they're starting off what I would say is one of the worst and hardest stretches of a schedule I've ever seen. It's going to be 8 games of pretty much 7 of the teams will be playoff teams this year. They're playing the Chiefs, they're playing the Bills, they're playing the Seahawks, they're playing the Cowboys twice. Um, so
Oh,
this and the Dolphins, and
that
this
is a
is just
tough
the start
stretch.
of it. So I think that they're going to have to get off on a good foot for that to, for them to actually have a chance to maybe win the division still, because the Cowboys are still hanging around. So I definitely have the Eagles in this game. I would expect them to cover because, like I said, Miami played against a good team. They did not look good. What do you think, Jack?
Yeah, I think in classic 710 sports fashion, I'm gonna have to disagree.
Ooh.
I'm gonna have to disagree, despite my Dolphins' doubts and despite the relatively troubling strength of schedule mention that you just brought up. But in my mind, it's I see the Eagles, despite like also having a great record, they beat this Patriots team by 5, and that's just the Patriots probably were their best week one. There weren't injuries yet. I could see that, but they beat Patriots by 1 score. Patriots could easily won that game as well. Like that was a fine. That was a Patriots had the ball. This yard line, this much time left. Like they could have done that. Like any team that's not the Patriots could have made that drive. Other than Giants probably couldn't either. But then they play. They lose. I mean, they lose. They win by only 6 against the like a 1-score game against the Vikings. Right. This is a win, but 1-score game against the not amazing Vikings team that puts up 28 on them. They beat the Bucks. Right. This is the most convincing win. 14 points. They beat the Bucks by. Win in overtime by a field goal to the Commies, to the Washington Commanders. They beat the Rams 9 points. That's 2 scores, but it doesn't feel a 23-14 game. It doesn't feel like the former NFC champions. I know the Rams are good this year, and then they lose to the Jets. Frankly, again, 1 score. I could see there's no game there that really screams to me, wow, this Eagles team is something different, man.
Mm, mm.
Like maybe the Rams, right? 9-point victory against the Rams that were without Stafford were fifth worst team in the league last year. Whatever the Lions pick was 6th worst. Yes, Stafford's back and all, but there's like that's the most meaningful win to me. But a lot of their wins aren't super meaningful, and the offense hasn't looked like it's been really clicking as much as it had been last year. They are adding Julio Jones, has just been signed by the Eagles of Falcons fame, of Titans
Wow, I didn't
fame.
know that.
Uh, yeah. I mean, it was like a couple hours ago. So, but like, I mean, that like they're adding on more veterans for this push. But like, I could definitely see them winning. But I see the Dolphins as outside of that loss to Buffalo have also similarly looked really good against bad teams, but they're blowing out bad teams. They're
Yeah, that's true.
they're sort of embarrassing bad teams, you could say. Uh, and I think that I think this game will be. So I'm gonna take the Dolphins. I think it will be a field goal, that sort of spread. Either way, I would definitely take Dolphins covering their covering at 2.5. I think it would be a 1-2, maybe 3. 2.5, I guess 3 covers that. But like 3-point win if the Eagles win, I think it will be close. But I'm going to take the Dolphins, and I think I think this game will tell us a lot about both of these teams.
Yeah,
I mean, and if it's like in any case, if we want to say both teams look amazing, well then that's going to tell us both teams look amazing. Hopefully, it's a close, really good game. If it's just close in general. Um, I don't think a team losing will necessarily mean they're a bad team, but I think how these teams play each other, both teams being stressed, the Dolphins maybe being stressed for the first time other than Buffalo. How do they respond to that?
right.
And similarly for the Eagles, now you have a team. You're going to have to either really contain them, which they didn't really do with the Vikings. Vikings still put up 28 points. They just scored more. Either really contain them or really get things clicking on offense. Like the Eagles have to do one of those this week, which will be interesting to see. Which I think it's a very informative game more than anything. That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I wouldn't be upset if the Dolphins win because I'm hot in the Dolphins. I predicted that they would win their division and they'd be, they'd be very good this season. So,
You did.
also them beating the Eagles would be great for me as a Cowboys fan. Let's quickly jump into um, any thoughts on Lions versus the Ravens. Heading into that's a 1 o'clock game. Should also be a very good one. I know a couple of good offenses, a couple of good QBs. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think this will be really interesting as well to sort of tell me what to think of the Ravens
Mm,
having lost 2 games, lost to the Colts of all teams, uh, as well as lost to with I think Gardner Minshew playing the majority of the snaps.
yeah,
I think that was an overtime loss. Losing
that was
that
a weird
game,
game.
losing to the Steelers, which yes, I'm at, there's always divisional stuff there, especially with teams like when it's like a Ravens Steelers. Of course, there's a lot of history there, but they still lost. They still only put up 10 points, I think, against the Steelers defense, but still only 10 points. You gave up 17 to that Steelers offense. There's sort of stuff there of for me. This is a real good moment. I don't think if they lose, it necessarily is too troubling for the Ravens, but if they win, I think that's a real good sign. That's a really good sign for them. I'm gonna take because of the hype train and the sort of because of the hype train. I'm gonna have to say, right, right. Like you're always the most confident right before you fall, and I
Oh,
could see the Lions. I could see this being a trap game. Yes, it's a prepare for the rate. Like yes, it's a team you prepare for. It's not like playing. You're going to play the Cardinals or something like the Cowboys had. But like I could see this being a okay. We've been crushing all the teams. We beat the Chiefs. Everyone in the NFL world loves us right now. We're
mm,
hot. We're hot. I could see this being the sort of game where if you let off the gas just a little bit, I think this Ravens team's good enough to sort of punish you for that, and I could see that being a consideration, and it's the Lions, the Lions have had enough. Lions fans have had their share now. Lions fans don't get much. You get to be ranked like number 2, number 3 by a lot of national ranking teams in the league, which I think it might be fair, which I think is fair. But you had that you got to go back down now, back to 0-16. You know, back to
yeah.
the basement, and
So
that's what's going to happen this week.
I agree, and I'm gonna say a couple of things. First of all, I want to give Lamar Jackson some love because he has been playing really good this season. He's been playing
Mm.
better than I expected based off the last couple of seasons where I think he's had some injury problems. And I know a lot of our viewers have actually pointed out, hey, we're not watching the tape on Lamar. We're not giving him enough love, and I think that's true, especially because he's been fighting the drops with his receivers. And I
Oh
don't think that
yeah,
they've really been performing
that's a
how
great.
the Ravens expected them to when they went and got Odell and they got Zay Jones. So, um, but I think Lamar's playing great. Also, the hype train. I 100% agree with you. The hype train is going to go off the rails if the Lions win this game because if you look at the rest of their schedule, they're going to continue to win. Next thing you know, they're going to go 5, 6, 7 games in a row winning, and against bad teams, and it seems like they have no problem blowing those teams out or winning by 10 plus. So all of a sudden, it's going to be Lions are going to the Super Bowl. And I can't handle that type of hype for the Detroit Lions. Like you
It's
said,
too much.
I mean, I'm happy for the fans, but I just don't think that they are. I don't think they're a legitimate contender. So,
Yeah.
and I don't really need to see more of Dan Campbell. I think I've seen enough. I think I know what it is. I'm more
And
of a Mike McDaniel's guy, in terms of like
mm,
weird coaches, that are like don't really fit the mold or the model. I think I'm gonna go with Mike McDaniel. Dan Campbell, not really my vibe if you can't tell. So, I'm just gonna say I'm gonna take the Ravens here, and hopefully it just delays some of that hype for another couple of weeks until they get another little stretch here where they win three in a row.